This one was inspired by Skeleton Key's Prague YouTube channel. Shout out to him, check out his channel, link in the description. And it's about why I left the UK and why you should too, or why you should leave your home country. I'm just walking up to the Prague castle here. It's quite a famous set of stairs. I can't remember the name because I'm a bad person, but yeah, his video was quite interesting and it kind of inspired me to make a similar one. And he started off the video by saying he's from the US, he doesn't hate the US, he doesn't think it's a bad country. And I'd like to say that I do hate the UK. It's a terrible place. No, I'm joking. No, it's fine. I mean, there's a reason why a lot of immigrants try to go to Western countries, because if you're very poor, it makes a lot of sense to be there. If you're fortunate enough to be born there, I think maybe stairs wasn't the best place to do this. If you're fortunate enough to be born there, you've got a stable life, etc. Then there's a lot of advantages to actually leaving your home country. But I understand why many immigrants would want to go to the West as well. That completely makes sense in their situation. And there's a Chinese proverb which was mentioned on The Idiot Abroad. If you've ever seen that, highly recommended, with Cole Pilkington. If you just stay in your own country, you're like a frog in a well. So your frog's stuck in a well, all you can see is this tiny shaft of the sky. It's kind of cheesy, but it's true. Like you're experiencing 1%, 1/10 of 1% of what you could be experiencing if you travelled a lot or lived overseas. And it's very true. And it's loads of stuff you wouldn't expect. It's not just food, it's not just culture, it's just little everyday things. I mean, it's stuff that you've seen if you've just travelled. Stuff that you've seen, unless you're in some resort or something. Yeah, there's a pretty steep staircase. So there's something about living overseas which just broadens your horizons. It means you're not taking tiny nibbles of life, it means you're experiencing a lot more than you would if you never did that. So something that the Skeleton Keys guy said, so I can't remember your name, dude, was the US is a bubble. And I think the US probably is more of a bubble than almost any other country in the world, but I think most countries are a bubble. Whether it's just them or them and a couple of neighbouring countries, almost everyone lives in a bubble. They have no idea. You know, if you're from Armenia, you go to China, that's going to be pretty interesting. You go to Kenya, that's going to be pretty interesting. So I think this kind of holds true for everything. Like if I go home, nothing's changed. People are watching the news, thinking about everything about that country. It's almost like the rest of the world doesn't exist. And then you go to the rest of the world and you're like, oh, they're not thinking about your country really. They're just thinking about their own stuff. And that's true pretty much everywhere. But if you actually live overseas, you just have a much richer, fuller life than you would living in the same town that you were born in, doing the same stuff, going to the same pub, whatever it is. Even if you move to another city in your country, you just have a much richer, fuller life if you live overseas. This is the Prague castle behind me. It's worth a visit if you can walk up the staircase. And I never really, it was never even really on my radar. This is quite a nice view here as well. Over Prague. It's never really on my radar until, I think I've spoken about this before, I just had a random, 2 events happened in quick succession. I randomly went to China and I randomly went backpacking in Berlin and Prague. And something just clicked. I was like, oh, now I get it. Every second of every day is kind of constantly interesting and stimulating in the way that it's not if you live in your home country. I know that I don't like the UK. I'll probably will live in London again But once you've kind of tasted that constant stimulation of living overseas, actually in some ways, when you go home again, it is, you appreciate it anew. You know, as the book The Alchemist says, I recommend that one if you haven't seen it. You do appreciate home more, actually, once you leave and go back. But it's never going to be as interesting as living overseas. The only real way to get into it is by just trying it. Just if you haven't been out of your country, get out of your country. If you haven't been out of your continent, get out of your continent. Do an extended trip. Go backpacking. Stay in hostels. Stay in little villages in the middle of nowhere. Stay with locals. And I think I'd like to think everyone could get a taste for traveling doing that. Maybe it's not for everyone, but once it's kind of like a narcotic. Once you've tasted it, it's kind of addictive because it's just interesting. You want your life to be interesting, and there's no quicker and easier way for your life to be constantly interesting than living overseas. And not only is everything more interesting to you, you're more interesting to other people as well. So it's kind of a win-win. Especially like people from the UK. Like if you're from the UK, English is your first language. Unlike say Americans. I mean, you genuinely do have English as your first language. I'm joking. I'm not joking. I'm joking. But yeah, if you're a native English speaker, I don't think most people realise, who are in English-speaking countries, you can go and live in paradise somewhere. Vietnam, Thailand, whatever, South America. Teach English. Just have the most incredible life. Instead of working in your factory or office, boring office, or whatever you're doing, you could just wake up every day next to a beach in paradise, having the most amazing experience. This isn't on most people's radar. What's this taxi doing? And I think people just would never consider it. They think it's not for them. They think they can't do it. But you can, it's so super easy. But it wasn't until I accidentally went travelling that I realised how easy it was. I mean, I'm a web developer, so I work online, so it's even easier for me in some ways, but still, I'd never thought about it until circumstances led to me doing it. And I've been doing it for 15 plus years now. And it also gives you a lot more empathy. Like it lets you see the world according to other people. Like if you're just stuck in your own country, you're very biased towards the way you do things, the way your country thinks. And if you travel, you genuinely start seeing things from other people's points of view. Or you think, oh, my country isn't the best or only way of doing stuff. Oh, they do it like that. Oh, this is where they're coming from. And it's just helpful to be able to look at life differently. And again, there's no quicker way of doing that than living overseas. And yeah, life is very short. And do you go into the same office job every day, even if you kind of like that office job? Do you want to go to the same pub every night for 40 years? Maybe you do. Or do you want to live in 5 different countries, meet people from all around the world, see how they live, do different jobs, see things every day that are a bit different to how things would be in your own country. Just little things all the time. Food, mannerisms, stuff like that. And even if you travel, you can see a bit of that traveling, but if you just stay living in your own country all your life, you're gonna have a less rich life. You're not gonna experience life as much as you would if you live overseas. So I'm not saying this because I think the UK is a bad place, but I think wherever you're from, you should try to live overseas, because it's super interesting. Okay, I'll see you guys on the road.